Hello, parents. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Lalit Mittal from Giggles Clinics and My Own Space. I'm a neurodevelopmental pediatrician and also I'm specialized in pediatric nutrition from Boston, USA. So, on this very important day of World Autism Awareness Day, where we believe about acceptance, love, and understanding our autistic kids. So, on this important day, I'll try to give my inputs and thoughts about how we as parents can help in bringing the best out of our child on this long and challenging journey of spectrum. So, before going into and discussing about my thoughts and putting my views across to you, I just want to discuss about a brief about what is autism. Now we go about by the DSM-5 criteria, or we go about by the literature, go about by the books. They say autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. But for me, it is not a neurodevelopmental disorder. It's in fact, I would say, a neurodiversity, where a child will think and look and perceive the world in a different way that may not be socially acceptable to rest of the 99 or 95% of the individuals. But what he is thinking may be right, but the way he's thinking is not right. In a very simple ways, the wiring system of the brain is different. In a very simple way, if I hold my ear like this, and if I hold my ear like this from the back coming round the round, both are correct because both of them are doing their task. But the way I'm doing it is important. And this is how the world or a child or a person who is standing next to him might look at him and perceive that how he's looking at the world, how he's doing the things is different. And that thing defines a particular term, what we call as autism spectrum disorder. That is the way in which he perceives the world. So if we stand 100 individuals in a line, everyone will have its own way of perception. Even my way is looking at the world is different. Even a child who is standing next to me, his way of perceiving the world is different. But that doesn't mean that he's in the spectrum. Then why is that some category of individuals, in even though their way of perceiving the world is different, they are categorized on the spectrum? The reason is because along with the perception of the world, there are some other important things which are important in defining a child who's on the spectrum. So it may be sensory issues, it may be behavioral issues, it may be communication issues. So this is a very, very important thing, which is a main core features in the spectrum. But as of now, we cannot define, yes, autism is defined as so and so with these features, because no child on the spectrum will ever look like same together. So if one child meets with a spectrum, he will meet another child with a spectrum. So no two child on the spectrum will ever be same. So can I define autism? So that means I cannot define autism at all. In fact, spectrum will define a particular child because his way of perceiving might be different from another child who's on the spectrum. That is why we say autism cannot define us, we can define autism. An autistic child or a person who's on the spectrum, he can define autism. And there is an important word, what we call as a spectrum. So spectrum means it's a wide range. It can range from 1% to 99%. So this is the variation of this spectrum. That includes so many things along with sensory processing issues, along with communication issues, along with behavioral issues, along with gut issues, and etc. etc. Or maybe communication issues. So when we about causes of autism, now there are no as such causes of autism, or I would say there are ample number of causes of autism. But the important thing is, and the most important nowadays, is epigenetics. The way our environment influences our thinking and thoughts, and that starts right from the womb when the child is there present in the mother. How the mother bears that stress of pregnancy. What about his way of thinking? How about his mental status? Because all these factors can affect the expression of the genes in the mother, what we call as an epigenetics. So if that is affected, definitely the chances of going into the spectrum might increase. It doesn't mean that it will cause. Other than these, there are various other factors like mode of delivery, your high risk factors, and etc. etc. But the important thing is there is genetic causes, where if a child is diagnosed with the spectrum, we do a battery of genetic testing that is not required, because only 10% of the cases, or maybe less than 10% of the cases who are on the genetic may be a part of this autism. So genetics is not a cause of autism. It's in fact an association with autism. So there are generally 3 to 4 important syndromes which are associated with autism, like Prader-Willi syndrome is there, Angelman syndrome is there, and one I think association with Downs is less, but most important is Fragile X. So the and some Red. Now, although Red was early initiated to be a separate entity from autism spectrum, but now it has been included in autism spectrum disorders. So earlier, like pervasive developmental disorders, Rett syndrome, or Asperger syndrome, they were characterized as a different entity and they were not included in autism spectrum disorders. But now, Asperger, Rett, pervasive non-specified neurodevelopmental disorders, not otherwise specified PDNOSS, Rett, they are Asperger, they are all included in autism spectrum disorders because Asperger is considered to be as a milder form of autism, whereas a full-blown spectrum autism spectrum disorder is considered to be a higher category, or they may be otherwise not specified pervasive non-developmental disorders, in which you will not get a typical features of spectrum, but yes, those issues of perceiving the worlds and different might be different, but those actual typical features of autism might not be there. So that is why this is basically the degree of severity of autism. So this is a brief about what is autism, what is the background of autism. Now, one important thing is why autism is on rise. Have we ever given a thought on this, why this autism is on rise? Earlier, maybe in 2009 or something, as per the CDC, that is the Center for Disease Control, they told that this, as per the data census, it was 65, it was 68. Every child on the 1 in 68 child was in the spectrum. But now, the figure has increased so dramatically in the latest census in around 2014 or maybe 2015. They say the spectrum, the ratio has increased so dramatically that every child out of 45 is in the spectrum. That is, one child and out of 45 is on the spectrum. So this is how this global rise of spectrum has occurred. Especially these data has been taken from US. So earlier it was 65, one child in 65. Now it has increased to 1 in 45. Now, in spite of our so much advancement, our thoughts and vaccines, advancement in medical care, advancement in modern technology, in spite of that, autism has been on rise, and to that, there has been no such standard formulation or treatment which we can actually potentially and rationally, or I would say strongly recommend that, yes, if we do this, it will come down. The most important thing why the autism is on rise is advancement in modern technologies. Why this advancement in modern technologies is reason because of this advancement in modern technologies, our setup in nurseries, use of high ventilators, use of modern medicines, now we are able to, prevent the preterms, even the extreme preterms, which are 32 weeks, which are 31 weeks, which are just born by 1 week, or which are just born with 1 kg of weight, which are 800 grams, 700 grams. Earlier, they were not being prevented. But now, because of these advancement in technologies, better NICU setup, tertiary cares, we are able to prevent these from dying. So that means basically we are increasing we are basically increasing, the I would say the delivery rates of these preterms. So because of the increase in the delivery rates of preterms, on the long term, we are increasing the morbidity rather than mortality. Already, we are basically reducing the mortality of these two preterms, but on the contrary, we are increasing the morbidity. Morbidity means associated problems. Now, because of these associated problems, or because of these increase in prevention of these preterm lives, we are basically increasing the chances of developmental delays, because most of these children who are on the spectrum might be having a preterm history, or if not autism, if they are development delays, they will be all majority of them might be preterm. They have a bad neonatal history. They might be high risk category of obstetric history. They might be low birth weight. They may be having neonatal infections. Along with that, exposure to gadgets. Nowadays, children having so much, they are approximately 10 to 15 times more exposed than they were exposed a year or 2 years, or 1 or 2 decades before. Now they have been all online classes thanks to the COVID. They have been exposed so many times to, gadgets, either in the form of online classes or doing art classes. So as a result, their exposure to gadgets has increased a lot. The third most important factor is the stress. The life of an individual in today's scenario is so stressful that the mother, the father, even the other grandparents, they need to work in order to run the running expenses. Or I would say, other than this, they may be financial, they may be, mental stress, they may be family stress, they may be health problem. So all these factors combining together has resulted in an increase in the risk of autism in the present scenario in our kids. So we are always trying to figure it out what best we can bring about in treating autism. But we forget about thinking what best we can do in preventing autism. So if we start looking at our way, and if we start imagining and thinking our brains in a way that how we can prevent autism, probably in near future or maybe in far future, we might be able to curb the rates of increasing incidence of autism. Because I believe treating autism might take a long time if we formulate some rational guidelines. But definitely, if we can think about on preventing how we can prevent, then definitely we might able to reduce the incidence of autism. That is why we always say preventive therapy is always best than treatment therapy. So now, major causes when we talk about autism are communication issues, behavioral issues, sensory issues. Now, a child is diagnosed with autism. So they will go to a developmental pediatrician, they will go to a pediatrician, they go to a big hospital, cars, etc., etc. Things is done. The child is being labeled with a spectrum. Now it has been defined. Okay, you go for OT, you go for special ed, you go for special therapy, you go for special education, you go for speech therapy. So parents, what a new parent will do? He doesn't know what is autism. So he will just follow these guidelines, and as a result, he will be running to therapies here and there, to one center in morning, to other center in there. And as a result, he gets so dependent on these therapies that he forget his role as mentors in bringing this long journey of autism and maintaining this long journey, or I would say challenging journey. So as a result, he doesn't know what is happening. He just rushes to the therapies. He's stressed out with his work. He's stressed out with the job, and ultimately they land up in the therapies and do a lot of things. But the thing is, I'm not denying that therapies are not required. They are the must. Proper professional guidance is very much. But to get totally rely on therapies is not an ideal approach. We as parents should know, and we as a parents know best about our child. And an autist and a child who is in the spectrum, nobody can tell best about his child than his parents. You will definitely need to take guidance from therapists, you need to take guidance from the doctors, but you should bring out the best from the child. And how, that is we will try to discuss. So what as a parent we can do? Important thing, because therapies everybody is going. The most important thing, and we should focus is, I would say 99% of the parents will be going to the therapies for OT, speech. And I'm taking this 99% because 1% is still a problem in our India because of the financial issues. They might, because these therapies are so expensive that even if you go for just 1 month, they can, they can bring down your pocket. So it's very tough for some majority, from some percentage of people to continue with these therapies for long. That is why 99% of the individuals might go to the therapy centers, they might spend monies, but in spite of that, why those 99% of the children who are on the spectrum don't get benefit? Only a part and a majority of the children who are on the spectrum will get the benefit, and they will able to improve and will able to bring the best out of it. They might go into do best in the education, they may do best in sports sector, they might do best in music therapies. Then why is that this child, he excelled so much in these different areas, or maybe one area, but why this child on the other hand doesn't exceeded at all in these areas, but both of them were going to the therapies in the same center with same enthusiasm, with same energy and regularly determination. Here comes the role of parents, because generally what happens, because of this stressful life, they'll be taking 3 hours to therapies, 3 hours to this therapy, 3 hours to this therapy, and finally they're so stressed out, they are finished. So the whole day is in therapy. So what the So what as parents they do, they are not able to do maximum out of it. So here as a parent is that the most important thing is you have to maintain a balance between the therapies and yourself. You need to have some balance between the therapies and you need to have some time with your child. Because if you will not give time to your child, there won't be an acceptance, understanding, and love. And that is the most important key success to your the autism journey. So acceptance is love is the most which every child requires, irrespective of the fact whether he's a neurotypical neurodiverse. You should always keep your energy levels calm. We always say इसमें एंजाइटी इश्यूज बहुत ज्यादा है, थेरेपीज में ठीक रहता है, सेंट हॉस्पिटल घर पे आके एकदम एंजाइटी इश्यूज आते हैं, चीजें थ्रो करता है, it doesn't tolerate, it doesn't listen to me, but in the therapy center is such a calm and nice boy. Why is that? Because I'm not blaming the parents, but the thing is parents need to think that even though they are going through such a stressful life, but they have to keep their energy levels very calm, positive vibrations. If they are able to maintain that, definitely, believe me, trust me, this is my opinion and my personal views. Your anxiety levels of your child, his response, his cooperation level with you in different therapies will reduce. Never, always avoid targeting the oriented goals. Means we always target oriented goals. We always want to achieve the target oriented goals. एक साल का 3 साल का हो गया 1 to 100 आना चाहिए, 4 साल का हो गया 1 to 200 आना चाहिए. No, these target oriented goals have to be crossed. You achieve goals as per the child's ability. He is, no doubt, he might be 4 years old, but because of the spectrum, because of his problem behavioral issues, his processing is, he's not an intellectually impaired child. Remember, only 20% of the children on the spectrum are intellectually impaired. Just leave them aside. I'm not talking, but the remaining 80% are not intellectually impaired. The problem is their processing. They are able to process things slowly. If a child on one side may able to bring a glass of water from kitchen within seconds, the child in the spectrum might get maybe 3 minutes. So the processing is slow. So keep working with your child, keep working with your child, and don't depend upon target oriented rules. Work as per the ability. He is a 4 year child. He doesn't bring a glass of water. That 2 year old child gets a glass of water within seconds. He is not going, I want to work on that. I want to work on that. No. How he will get a glass of water when he doesn't know what is glass? So you have to teach as per his ability in a stepwise manner. Basic things. Can anybody expect me that I would respond to in a French language if someone is talking to me in French? How can I? When I doesn't know the meaning, how can I respond to it? Similar. When a child, 4 year old child, forget about his age. When a 4 year old child doesn't know what is glass, cannot follow a single word command, doesn't know identification, how can he get a glass of water? Then are we not wrong in comparing my child who is on the spectrum with that child who is on a 4 year old age? Because we are comparing those in goal oriented form, that he can do that. Why am I not child? I want to train him. So we just give him a rote memory, 1 to 100 he will understand. He will pick up 2, he will pick up 3, but he doesn't know what is the numerical meaning of 2. If you tell him, okay, give me 2 balls, he doesn't. But if you tell him circle the 2 on the board, he will do that. So this is the most important thing which we as a parents need to figure out, because these things nobody will taught you, nobody will teach you. They will help in giving you a guidance, but these things have to be done by you. And that can be done only when you are able to get more bonding, when you are able to get connected with him more beautifully, and you can develop this whole, uh, connection between you and bonding a very strong. When the child is born, when a newborn is born, we always tell you keep the baby as close as possible to you. Don't keep it on the croup. What we call in a technical word, medical term, is roaming in. That means as much as you will keep the baby to you, it will be, emotions will develop. A tactile care, a tender loving care will develop. Similarly is the thing which needs to be developed in your child who is in the spectrum. Don't just take him to the therapies with the target of aiming this, with the target of achieving this. Try to understand his behavior. Remember, your child is giving the best in him, whatever he can do, but never compare him, and always give him, always reward him in the form of claps. Never it should be in the form of materialistic. Always believe him, always trust him that whatever he's doing is the best. So this was my small thoughts, my views in my journey in my child, and also my experience, my guidance to other parents. And I hope that this day will definitely bring some better, bright future in your child. And I wish my all the good wishes to every parent who is on the spectrum who are connected to us. Thank you. Thank you very much, parents. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you.